What's up? This is the podcast playbook. I am John W Snyder. I am starting a 10-part series on just starting a podcast. Or if you've already done a podcast and you've started one before, this might be a good refresher if you're getting back into it and you're looking to start again. Because let's be honest, most podcasts don't make it past 3 episodes. Those are the statistics. People peter out after 3 episodes. And so maybe you've done that, but you're getting back into it, then this can also help you. Or if you own a small business or you're a realtor, you roast coffee beans and sell them. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but you should have a podcast. And that's kind of what this is going to go into and be about. And that's what this whole podcast playbook is for, because the more content you create and get out there, let's be honest, the more customers and clients you could have. And so that's my goal with this. That's my hope. I want to come into this, first off, fully transparent. I'm also still trying to figure this out. There's this thing called imposter syndrome, where people get scared that maybe they're an imposter. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're talking about. They're not an authority figure in whatever field they work in, whatever field they are a part of, whatever their career is. People have this weird thing called imposter syndrome where they feel like an imposter because they just don't feel like they have the authority to talk on a certain topic or subject. To be fully transparent, that happens with a lot of people. And I am just starting this out. I've already done 3 episodes. So this is technically my 4th episode, but I'm starting at just a 10-part series that I'm going to try to do in the next 10 days. That's the goal. Maybe the next 14 days, just because of the weekend. And it's just about starting a podcast. The tools that are out there, that kind of thing. And so this is part 1. And I'm going to title part 1, super easy, start simple. That's it, start simple. And if you're starting a podcast, don't overthink it. Like, you don't need to overthink it. There's this other word or phrase, which it's called it's 2 words. So I guess it's a phrase, is paralysis analysis, or analysis paralysis. Anyways, what does that even mean? Like, why? So another thing like imposter syndrome, analysis paralysis, I can't even say it. Basically, stop overthinking things. So if you own a local business, a small business, and want to start a podcast, start a podcast. It's basically free to start a podcast. It really is free. You just need a few apps, your phone, and you can start a podcast. And you don't have to have everything figured out, because I obviously don't. I've got a notepad right here I'm going to be looking down at, trying to do this and figure this out too. Being, again, I know I've said it, but fully transparent, I'm in this with you. I'm doing this together. This is going to help me also, and hopefully it will help you. And that's the whole other thing with a podcast, is clarifying your message of what your podcast is about, which is a whole lot easier if you've already got a local business. Like if you own a coffee shop and you do a weekly podcast, that's easy. You already know what your podcast is going to be about. So if you're a realtor, you already know what your podcast is going to be about. And so the whole thing of just start simple, don't overthink it. For example, I have another podcast that I've been doing for over 10 years now, and it's all geared around sports. And when I started it, at the time, I was working full-time at Apple. And so I would, in my car, probably not the safest thing, but driving, this wasn't video, so I would just have my phone mounted, and I would record into Voice Memo, the Voice Memo app, and I would record a podcast on my drive home about sports that happened that day. And so when I say start simple, I mean start simple. You set up an account with Spotify for podcasters. That's the app. It's in the App Store. Spotify for podcasters. You can go to the website. Same thing. Set up a free account. They'll help you and linking everything to Apple if you want it on Apple, YouTube, that kind of thing. So start simple. It's free. I started with my phone. I had no video, and some of my podcasts were 2 minutes. Some of them were 15 minutes as I was driving, and I would just talk the entire time home. That would be a podcast episode about sports of that day, whatever happened that day that I knew about, that I read about, that I wanted to talk about. So you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to have all this expensive gear. You don't have to go out and buy a mixer. You don't need an editor. You don't need a photographer. You can be a one-man show and do a podcast. Is it going to be pretty? Maybe not. But also, who cares? Because I also think that shows the authenticity and just the transparency of what you're doing and what you're trying to do as you create a podcast. And so start simple, don't overthink it. Like, that is the main gist of starting a podcast. Don't worry about the name. Don't worry about the gear, the art, the graphics, all that stuff. Just for example, this is super easy and simple. There's a coffee shop that I go to by us, and they could have a podcast. They don't need to overthink it. It could be the Ladera Ranch Coffee Shop Podcast, or the name of their business is Oslo Coffee. It could be the Oslo Coffee Podcast. You don't have to overthink these things, because the title and all that stuff can come later. You can always change it, whatever. What is important is the content, right? So before you starting simple, if you have a clarity of your message and what you're trying to get across, and if you're bringing value to every single episode you record, you're already light years ahead. Because if you're going into something without a message, without clarity of the message you're trying to get across, you're in trouble from the beginning. If you're going in and you're not adding value to anyone listening, you're in trouble. Because having a podcast about whatever it is, there's an audience for everything. I mean, your podcast could be about grilling, and you could review different kinds of spatulas on your podcast. There's going to be listeners for that. There's especially grilling. Like, tons of people grill. It's, and so you have that as your podcast. You've got content, and there you've also got an audience. So don't overthink it. Like, if you have a small business, local business, a podcast is one of the best marketing tools you can create and do, and it's free. You just need your phone. Even for video, like, I'm recording this on video just using my phone. Obviously, I have a microphone now. I bought a microphone during COVID, because during COVID, everyone was trying to figure out and do stuff, and I was like, well, I'll just get a microphone for my podcast because I'm home now for however long. But anyways, but when I started, all I had was my phone, and that was for like 5 years. I just used my phone, nothing else. So you can use that for video, audio, whatever it might be. If you have that clarity of message, if you bring value, and especially if whatever you do solves a problem, you are going to have listeners if you can solve a problem in your podcast for people listening. Even if it's simple stuff like for moms who need a better start to their morning. I know there's moms out there who probably have a podcast for this, and the problem they solve is moms don't have enough time in the morning. If they're trying to get the kids out the door, then there's probably a podcast for that. What problem do you solve? What value do you bring, and what's the clarity of your message? And then it also just might be entertainment value or educational value, which is value. You might not necessarily solve a problem every episode, but if you have a podcast, you own a coffee shop, you can educate your listeners on roasting of beans and why are some beans light and some dark? How does that work? What is that process? Where are your beans from? How do you source your beans? All of that stuff. That's so educational. And there's a bunch of coffee nerds out there. And I say that because I am one. And that's why I talk about maybe that being a podcast, because I know a lot about coffee because I'm a nerd and wanted to roast and all that stuff. So that's why I bring it up and talk about it. But there's other people out there like me who would love to listen to a podcast about that. That's what I mean. You have a voice, you have an audience. Start simple. Make it easy for yourself too. Like some people get overzealous and they're like, I'm going to do a podcast every day. Do one once a month. Start simple. Make it a thing that you are going to record a podcast once a month, and that podcast is going to come out on whatever day of that month. The 15th, the 1st, the end of the month, whatever it might be. Start simple. And then maybe go to twice a month, 3 times a month, 4 times a month. And I know there's people out there who do a podcast every day, which is wild to me because it does take a lot of preparation if you're doing it right. It takes time. I get that. So start simple. Start simple. I know I'm overstating it, but that is the main gist of episode 1. Don't overthink it. You don't need a ton of gear. You need an iPhone, Spotify for podcasters, and you're good to go. That's it. That's all it takes. And I would love to help you out. And if you need help, reach out to me at John W Snyder on basically every social media platform. You can find me at John W Snyder. And I would love to help you get started on starting a podcast. And I'm hoping to make some educational videos coming up of different software I use now and how to use some of this free software to get your podcast started. So don't overthink things. Make it simple. Figure it out as you go. It's so much better to start messy than to not start at all. Because even though I have some of this stuff, this is still messy. And I'm okay to admit that. I'm still trying to figure it out. And hopefully to tighten this up. Because I really, really believe that podcasting is such a great marketing tool for your brand. I believe that everyone should have a podcast that has a business and owns a business. You'd be stupid not to have a podcast if you own a business because it's a content generating machine and it's going to help you with get more clients, customers, and it'll help you become more of an authority figure in your field. Like if you do own a coffee shop and you start a podcast, you could talk about what it was like starting a podcast, some of the hula hoops you had to jump through to start that coffee shop. So there's people out there who want to start something, start a business, any kind of business. There's people out there who are thinking about getting their real estate license. If you're a realtor, talk about that in your podcast because you're bringing value, and then people are going to trust you and they're going to look for you maybe if they want to buy a home or maybe refer them or whatever. You should have a podcast. It's free. It creates content. And if you do an episode once a month or twice a month, it's not going to take up a ton of your time. I'm now to the point where I can record this episode, create content, social media reels, shorts from this episode in a matter of a couple hours. And if you're recording it and you're not posting it for a week, then you have a week. You could work on it, editing it, whatever, 20 minutes a day until you post it. I know I'm kind of long-winded. I'm also trying to figure that out. Like I said, I'm being transparent here. But I wanted to start this series because I do honestly believe that having a podcast will be one of the best things for your business, especially small business, if you don't already have one. And start simple. Don't overthink it. I wrote it down. Starting messy is better than not starting. So just create it and ship it. Like when I did this, when I started my other sports podcast, there was no editing. There was no editing at all because I just wanted to talk about sports and I wanted to get my voice out there. And so I would record it, post it. Okay. Obviously, now with some of this editing software, I take out a lot of the ums and and pauses to make it flow a little bit better, but starting simple and just starting. So this was episode 1 of my 10-part series of starting a podcast. I hope you get some kind of value out of it, and I hope you stick around for the next 9 parts. Appreciate you listening. Good luck podcasting.